Hello, beautiful souls. We are talking about generational trauma and generational trauma healing. Many of you might be wondering, what is generational trauma healing? Well, let's face it, most of us just don't even like the sound of that. We don't want to think about or dwell on the past, with good reason. We want to leave the past right where it belongs and just let sleeping dogs lie. And that's because we don't realize how much our past and the past of our family has shaped us. Our patterns of behavior, our ways of thinking, our ways of being, right up to and including our relationships. So healing our subconscious, healing that part of yourself that goes back many generations. In a sense, we are healing our shadow. And not only do we begin to heal ourselves, but we begin to heal all of those who came before us, our parents, our grandparents, and the entire line of ancestors who may have been very much affected by the same types of patterns of behavior, maybe negative ways of thinking and habits that we are today. In this regard, we know that there is a pain on the surface. We can put a name to it, but there is even more that we don't see, or so much more that we don't consciously feel, because it is buried deep in our subconscious. We know that something is wrong, but we can't really put our finger on it. We may even have dreams about it, and sometimes those dreams come to us to give us very important messages. So if you feel you are carrying heavy baggage from dealing with a generational trauma that is being carried through generations, it's important to start healing. There's no question that it could seem very overwhelming. Most people don't really know where to start. And a good place, I feel, when I'm helping my clients is to just begin meditating on the situation itself. Just the fact that you are thinking about healing will not only heal your wounds, but will also heal your parents, your grandparents, and all of those who have come before, as I already said. So, like it or not, this trauma started long before you were born, and more likely than not, all of those who have come before had no idea how to heal, nor did they even feel that they needed healing. They just went through life thinking and feeling, well, this is the way it is, and there's nothing that I can do about it. This is very much a victim-based mindset, and we want to do our best to stray away from this type of mindset. We do generational and ancestral healing to empower ourselves so that we can show up every day as the best version of ourselves, to show compassion for ourselves and for others. And you will see that once you start this healing, you will begin to feel much lighter, energetically, mentally, emotionally, and even physically. Carrying years and years of emotional baggage is exhausting, don't you think? It's heavy. It's like carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. So when we begin this process, it's a good idea to look deep within and have a pen and paper at hand and write down the negative factors, behaviors, patterns, emotions, or personality traits that you feel may have a direct correlation to ancestral or generational trauma. So this is just as an example. For example, if your parents are divorced, and perhaps you were very young when they divorced, you were maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, maybe even younger. This may have had a huge effect on your feelings of guilt. As a child, you may have felt that it was your fault that your parents got divorced. So you carry these feelings with you subconsciously. And every time something goes wrong, be it in your personal or professional life, you begin to feel all those guilty emotions washing over you. Even though as an adult, you know that your parents' divorce was not your fault. Almost like an automatic response that you have no control over, where something goes wrong and automatically feelings of guilt rush in to your body. And if this is the case, the emotion of guilt can be a good place to start. So first, write down what the word means. What does that word mean? That's number one. Guilt. Define it. If it had a color, what color would it be? What connotations does guilt have, generally speaking? For you, this is for yourself. And this can go for any type of emotion. So write down everything you feel when you feel guilty. All the emotional feelings to the psychological feelings, to any physical manifestations that may occur, such as perhaps your heart starts to race, your body temperature rises, your breath becomes shallow. Maybe the emotion is so intense that you start to shake, or maybe you start to sweat because your adrenal glands are kicking in, and that means your fight or flight responses are setting in. Very common with many of these deep-seated subconscious emotions. And so another very powerful emotion that we can all work on can be anger. So if you feel, for example, that you have an explosive temper, in all likelihood, you may have had a parent or grandparent with similar issues. So let's do the same thing. What color is anger? Does it have a temperature? What connotations do we have with the emotion of anger, even like as a collective? And begin to write down what you actually feel when you are angry. Obviously from the emotional standpoint to mentally and psychologically. Do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel like you're suffocating? Do you feel like you're not allowed to express your anger? Does your temperature rise? Does your heart race? Do you feel anything in your stomach? Does your stomach hurt? Do you start to shake? Any one of those. And just, there may be others. And remember that healthy anger is okay. Healthy anger is fine. We are often taught as children that good boys and girls do not get angry, and they do not demonstrate anger. However, healthy anger and expressing it in the proper way, in a loving and compassionate way, is a good thing because it sets boundaries. Anger is a very common emotion when we feel that someone has overstepped their boundaries. or they have crossed a particular line without permission. So I encourage you to begin to think about all these emotions that you have inside of you, and not only the so-called negative or bad emotions, or what our society might call negative emotions, because I don't really believe in negative emotions. Remember, emotions are just energy. The energy of the emotion is very important. You can be angry at someone, but still send them peace and love. You can still forgive them so that you may have peace in your own heart and give yourself the freedom to move forward. Think about the more primal emotions such as fear and anger, because these are the emotions that kick in when we are in fight or flight. These are the emotions that are very much emotions that are sort of passed on from the past generations, from our ancestors. They are fight or flight emotions, and obviously they kick in when we're trying to protect ourselves. It obviously becomes a problem when we are in a constant state of fear or a constant state of anger. Mentally, physically, these emotions all have not only mental and psychological manifestations, but also physical manifestations. So we can think about those emotions, and we can also think about the more subtle emotions that connect us to our higher self, such as forgiveness, love, patience, compassion, and kindness. So write it all down. I encourage you to write it all down, meditate. If this is new to you, just meditate on, I would just maybe start with one emotion that you feel is very much overpowering in your life, and that you really feel like it's affecting your behavior or even the course of your life. And focus on that and think on it and meditate on it. And try to determine, if you can, how you can make a change, or what changes you can make, even if they're just very small changes. What changes you can make so that this emotion does not have so much power over you. Where does this emotion come from? And because we're talking about generational trauma, is this emotion even yours? Does it belong to you? Or does it belong to someone else? I feel like that is a very powerful question when dealing with this type of healing. And I will be doing another recording in a few days. And I will also be uploading a meditation for the summer solstice. So I send you all love and blessings and peace. Thank you for listening.